morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined this morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Guys, be sure to tell us where you're checking in from. We love to see that. We got lots to talk about today.
I've seen Clearwater, Florida. I'm very jealous, Kurt, still. I saw Hillsboro, Texas. Here's a crazy one. I once took a junior college basketball visit to Hill JUCO.
I'm sure that was as riveting.
Well, I mean, look, my academics were slightly higher than that. My basketball skills were slightly lower than that.
Hey, tell us what kind of coffee you drink too, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
We got away. We used to do that a bunch. And I'm sitting here in a hotel, and so I'm just drinking, I don't know, Folgers from the hotel lobby. But we got away from that a little bit. I love hearing that. It's been a fun thing for us to do. Hey, Jerry, a lot of stuff going on yesterday. One of the things that we wanted to talk about this morning was literally the video that the University of Texas put out. Yes. 32 days, the countdown until spring ball begins. This is the video the University of Texas put out yesterday. They're getting after it, guys.
First glance, Malik Muhammad. You see the work guys are putting in. He's a stronger looking guy in his upper body.
Yeah, I'm telling you, people don't realize this is what I was talking about the other day. These guys are still growing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean by that? Like it's very interesting. People forget that and I have a child that's a junior in college right now, right? That's that, and you forget that they're still growing. If you just look at them as individuals, you forget that this is not pro football, that there is a big difference between year 1, year 2 to year 3, and then on. They're still growing. And so I think that's going to be interesting. We'll see how it all goes, but I'm excited about the Longhorns 32 days away from spring ball.
I love Sark's word, obsessed. I love that.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We've talked about this. And by the way, somebody checked in from Tomball. Bobby, is Roger Vick the best prospect you've seen out of Tomball High, by the way? Roger Vick was pretty good. Who was the quarterback of that team, though?
Oh, I don't Lance Pavlis.
There you go.
Yep. The former A&M. They both went to A&M. The one that they had a baseball player up there. Golly, I can't remember. That's too long. Hey, but you were talking about obsessed and that terminology. What Sark used that, and the rallying cry last year was together, embrace the hate, then FAFO. Sark likes his little monikers, and all coaches do. You know that. I mean, so this is going to be interesting to see how he tries to tie it all in together.
I love obsessed. I'll tell you why I love obsessed, and we kind of talked about it. I've hit on just my thoughts on this. Texas got to the college football playoff, obviously, but didn't climb the mountaintop. Alabama has 3 guys come over to Texas. They got to the college football playoff. They didn't climb the mountaintop. That I love the word obsessed. Sark is in this point in time in this program while they're still trying to climb to the top of the mountain. And they got close last year, but now he wants these guys to be obsessed with finishing games, finishing season, be obsessed with it, climb the mountaintop, get to the top of the mountain. Then after Sark in Texas does that, then the tough job is staying there. But I love the term obsessed with this team. I think these guys have something to prove. I feel like they got just enough of it last year to realize, whoa, what a feeling it would be to finish this thing off. So it's going to be tougher. It's a tougher haul for everybody in the 12-team playoff now than it was in 4. But you got to love where the program's headed and the way Sark is pushing these guys. He's got a feel for it.
Hey, 2 comments that just came in. I knew there was a baseball player, David Clyde.
Yes.
From Tomball, went straight in 1 year from high school to the major leagues for the Texas Rangers. You know that?
Yep.
Blake Monroe?
I did not know that.
Baseball guy. That was back before your time, but yeah, he went straight from college or high school baseball I think he played pro baseball in the major leagues at either 18 or 19 years old.
Wow.
I mean, he was a wonderkin. And the other one that I saw on there was one of the wide receiver moniker or whatever. No block, no rock.
No block, no rock.
No block, no rock.
Hey, for the basketball fans out there, everybody knows Tom Ball High now because Jimmy Butler, that's where he went. When he was a little 6'2", 6'3" guy that was an average player, went to JUCO and grew 4 inches, 5 inches, and became what you see today. That guy wanted to be great for the young football and basketball players and their parents that watch this show. That guy wanted to be great.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, Jerry, talk a little bit of recruiting stuff. Tredarian Ball ran a 10.5 100 meter this week. You dropped some nuggets on Texas football yesterday. You went out to see Dorian Brew at Conroe, one of the nation's top cornerbacks that Texas is really pushing. You had some notes on the offensive line group that the Longhorns are recruiting, as well as some wide receiver talk. Give us a little update on recruiting so people have a feel for what all went on yesterday.
Yeah, Blake, I think we have the video of Tredarian Ball. So the 2026 running back at Texas High. What a way to go into your second track meet of the year. Now, we don't know the wind. We don't know if it's downwind or whatnot. But that's in the 10.5s right there. Texarkana Game Day, which does a great job. Texarkana Game Day, Longview Game Day up in East Texas. They do a great job with high school sports up there. So shout out to them. I met those guys when I was at Pleasant Grove a couple of weeks ago. But 3 hours after this 10.5 Georgia offers, that's the way this stuff goes on social media now. I mean, he already had 30 offers, right? I think Texas is in a pretty good spot for Tredarian Ball. But Georgia comes in and offers, right? And he should get a Georgia offer after running 10.5 at 5'10" and at 5'11", 185 pounds. Let's be clear. So the 2026 running back class in Texas is extremely talented. KJ Edwards at Carthage is very good. Obviously, Racine Guillory's committed to Texas. Texas will take 2 running backs in 2026. I don't think any of them are going to physically look like Jerrick Gibson. If you haven't seen that photo on Instagram, geez. Woo! Boys, Jerrick Gibson going to be 5'9", 220-pound little rolling ball of butcher knives, man. I mean, that's what that guy's going to be. But I was at Conroe High yesterday. Watched Dorian Brew, a little track workout. Watched their football workout. I actually posted on OnTexasFootball.com about a couple other guys. They have an edge kid named Jaden Ramos in 2025. K-State and Pitt offered. And somebody was asking in the chat yesterday, asked CJ and I, who is a senior riser? Who's a guy that could rise in this class? I just happened to see a guy yesterday. I mean, he dunks it all over the place in basketball. He's 6'5" with 10.5-inch hands. He's 225 pounds now because after basketball, he was 240. But watch out. Now, watch out for Jaden Ramos as a senior because a lot of colleges are going to come through to see Dorian Brew in the spring. On Dorian Brew, look, Texas, LSU, Ohio State, USC, Oregon. Those are your 5. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot, but still a ways to go in this recruitment. It could end June, could drag out till July. His father will be track Hall of Famer if he's not already at LSU. He went to Klein Forest High School. Mom's already in the Athletics Hall of Fame, Track Hall of Fame at Ohio State. He did visit USC the weekend after Texas. He went out there for Junior Day on January 27th. He's also been to LSU. Corey Raymond came by the school when he was hired back at LSU and is all in there. Tosh Lupoy is recruiting him for Oregon. So this is a recruitment that has all your heavy hitters in it. So Sarkisian flew in a helicopter with Blake Gideon. Blake Gideon and Terry Joseph talked to Dorian Brew Wednesday. Obviously, you have Ohio State. Ryan Day came through and his staff. USC, Lincoln Riley was by the school. His DeAnton Lynn, the DC, is from the state of Texas. But I think LSU may end up being a little bit more of a player in this than we thought early on because it looked like Ohio State, Texas. He still likes Ohio State. I don't think they're totally out of it, but they've slipped a little bit with 2 DBs committed there who are 5-star corners. But he's still listed in Ohio State, obviously. But those are your schools. Dorian said he'll get back to Texas this spring. What's interesting is April 6th, I think. We've been talking about weekends, how many weekends Texas will have this spring where they have prospects. I'm adding April 6th to that list because there's already April 20th spring game, and I'll start last and go back. April 20th spring game, We know Michael Terry, Ricky Stewart have already said they're going to be in that weekend, but there will be tons of other guys. It's just track and camps and everything you got to work through to get those visits finalized. And as Bobby mentioned, Oklahoma and A&M have spring games the same day as well as other SEC teams. So that is spring game day. But so then April 13th, 14th, Major Preston, a 4-star DB out of IMG in Virginia. He's visiting. But April 6th, I think, is going to end up being a weekend where Texas has a lot of guys as well. There's a 7-on-7 tournament in Dallas that weekend. So you could see some skilled guys trickle through on Friday. But I think John Mills, the offensive lineman out of San Francisco, St. Ignatius, who Texas is in a good spot with, he's making an official visit June 14th through 16th. I think there's a good chance he comes back April 6th for an unofficial visit before that official visit. Michael Fasusi, I believe, will be in town with his family one day in this spring. Will that be April 6th? Will it be April 20th? Could it even be in March? We'll find out. But I think that visit's going to happen as well. So just Kalik Lockett. I spoke with somebody close to that recruitment yesterday, the 4-star receiver at Saxe High. Texas very much in it. Now, he didn't attend the January 20 Junior Day, and all these notes are on OnTexasFootball.com. Go on over there, ask questions, whatnot. I'll answer all your questions. But Texas very much in it. And what I learned yesterday about Lockett, I did not know based on through this conversation. Father's from Los Angeles, mom's from Louisiana. So see, this is one of these kids we talk about. He's not really a Texas kid through his family tree, right? There's a lot more of those kids in Texas nowadays. He likes Texas. I think it meant a lot that Sark came out and saw him, even though he didn't come to the junior day. Lockett had told me last week he's going to come down for a day in the spring. So we'll find out if that's March or April coming up. But Texas very much in the mix with LSU, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU for Kalik Lockett. And there's some other notes as well on TexasFootball.com.
Yeah.
Raheem Delane, somebody's asked Fahim Delane, Horn 7 asked about him. He's told me twice he's coming in March or the spring. He just doesn't have a date yet. That's the 4-star safety out of Olney, Maryland, and Good Counsel High School, one of the top safeties in the country. Blake Gideon putting in work there. I think it's more of a long shot, but look, here's the reality. If you get enough of these guys on campus from out of state, you're going to find 2, 3, 4 of those guys you have a legit shot with at the end of the day, and you can get them back for June official visit. I think getting some of these guys to campus this spring is going to be so key for that next part of the process, which is June official visits.
You talked about that picture of Jerrick Gibson. And so Andrew wanted to see it. So I went and found it. There you go.
Ooh, man, dude, I'm just telling you, he's bigger now than he was 5'9", 212, I think, the last time I saw him in person at Under Armour. I mean, he's going to be 5'9", 5'9 and a quarter, 220 coming right at you.
When I say arms, dude.
When I say a linebacker blitzing up the middle is not going to shock his body, this is what I'm talking about. This guy's physically ready to play with a low center of gravity and hit that blitzing linebacker. This guy is built like very few freshman running backs are. Now he's 19. He's a little older. Who cares? I mean, that dude's rocked up now.
Emmanuel Villafranco says, how fast is he?
Jerrick, I would guess he's probably – I'm guessing he's a 4.6 guy, maybe 4.4, 4.5, 4.57, 4.6 in that range. Now, somebody wants to see the Colin Simmons pick, which Colin, his mom posted it, then he reposted it on Twitter yesterday as well. So everybody wants to see that Colin Simmons picture as well.
Y'all are putting me on the spot here. I'm hurrying.
Hey, well, let me do our advertising read first, Blake, and then you can get to that if you don't mind, buddy.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Hey, every Friday's morning's Coffee and Football is brought to you by BKCW. BKCW is a business insurance firm that takes you out of the insurance trap by providing you and your business with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape the insurance trap, and it all starts with a free risk assessment. Go to bkcw.com or Send an email to info@bkcw.com to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap. Thank you, BKCW, for your ongoing sponsorship. They do all kinds of businesses, by the way, including publishing businesses like On Texas Football.
All right, I found it, guys. There you go.
Yeah, that's what 15, 20 pounds in a short amount of time looks like. I mean, look, we kind of I talked about this, and I'm sure CJ talked about it. For anybody that was down at the Under Armour All-America game, Colin was bigger in his upper body. That I think when you see 6'2", 6'2 and a quarter, 215, 220 listed, sometimes it's hard to kind of visualize what that looks like unless you see a kid up close. But one thing I'll tell you is he was already getting defined in his upper body. He looked stronger to me in his upper body in December at the Under Armour game than he did when he committed to Texas. Somebody posted a photo of both those next to each other online. I don't know who it was. Colton, no, deer antler spray. This isn't the PGA Tour in the 90s, but that's pretty funny. He's carrying, I think he's added a lot of weight in his legs from what I can tell. He's adding a lot of muscle strength, weight in his legs, and continuing to build out that chest and those arms. He's going to be a 6'2 and a quarter, 255-pound blur coming off the edge for the Longhorns, man. Y'all are going to love watching this guy play.
Hey, we have a super chat from Michael Schuler that I want to read real quick. And Michael, thank you, Michael. He says, enjoy Philly, Bobby. I'm from there and just moved to Austin. If you need any food or cheesesteak recommendations, let me know.
You know what I need? I need a pizza recommendation for tonight, if you don't mind, because I'm taking my daughter and two of her college friends to the Palestra, Jerry. We're going to go watch some college basketball at the Palestra. Which, if you're a college basketball fan, like a old school one, that's where the Big Five used to play. They call it the Big Five. So Villanova and St. Joe's and Penn, Drexel all played in this building, and they played out of state. Temple was another one.
Yep.
And so, long story short, I'm going there. I've been in the arena, but I've never been to a game. So I'm doing that with my daughter and two of her friends. But I need a pizza place, if you don't mind, that's somewhere around that I could take them to after the game.
By the way, as a big college basketball fan, I'm jealous. I think Philadelphia is the best city for college basketball because of what Bobby just said. I mean, just think about the Villanova. You could go watch college basketball in multiple Division I levels. I mean, there's some tremendous low major game, lower D1 games than mid major, and then you got the high major with the Big East and Villanova back in the day, and obviously what Jay Wright did there. So unbelievable college basketball city.
Last time I was up here, Jerry, I showed you that picture. I'm driving. I rented a car and I had to drive out to outside the city limits a little bit, but it wasn't actually outside the city limits. They have little suburbs that are tightly wound, around the city center. And I'm driving just down this innocuous road, and out of the left corner of my eye, I see this old school high school, and it's called Overbrook, right? And I immediately realized it because I'm a sports trivia nerd and followed all that stuff growing up. That's Wilt Chamberlain's high school.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, it just out of nowhere. I'm driving down the street. Oh, there's Wilt Chamberlain's. Anyways, that was kind of cool. Philly's got a long storied basketball history, no doubt.
Yeah,
you got your
King Me. Good question. 829. King Me. I was up in East Texas last week. Went to see Lance Jackson, Texas High, Kilgore. Chapel Hill to see Ricky Stewart, Lufkin to see Zion Williams, made a couple other stops, which we'll talk about in the future there in East Texas. We don't talk about them all, but made a few stops in East Texas. Was out and about a little bit in Houston this week. We'll be in Houston next week. Then I'll be on the road outside of Houston again the following week. A lot of kids are out of school today and Monday. So we're going to stick in the Houston area next week. Then go a little bit outside of that Houston area the following week. And the spring valuation period will be fun. We'll get out and do some stuff in Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, all those states.
One thing we need to mention, Blake, one thing we also need to mention that we didn't at the top that is news. is William Gay, the defensive back, the former NFL defensive back. He had been hired to replace Dwayne Akina earlier this year in January as a off-field defensive analyst. Yesterday, it was announced that he was heading to the Washington Commanders as the assistant defensive back coach. So that is not abnormal. That's a step up for him. And so congrats to him. He's off and around now. Who is Texas going to hire to replace William Gay? This is one of the reasons why I say this. These people are just like Joe DeCamillis. They move every year. Payam Sadat moves every year. Their goal isn't to stay a defensive analyst or an offensive analyst. Most of these guys. Now, for every Gary Patterson, there's like 20 guys that aren't, really just looking to stay in one spot and make 50 to 100 grand a year. They're trying to get up and start making that 150, 250 a year as a real assistant. So that's what you're going to get.
Somebody asked about Tashard choice in Georgia State with Coach Elliott leaving to go to South Carolina. Here's the only thing I'll say about that. If you're sitting back and you're at a really good job right now and you see a guy leave the head coaching job there to go to be a tight ends coach at South Carolina, that kind of tells you about the future of G5 football in a lot of these guys' estimation. It happened twice. Guys left to go to the Alabama staff. You go back, think back to when Chris Beard was hired at Texas. Rodney Terry and Chris Ogden left lower D1 jobs, UTEP, UT, Arlington, to come to Texas. There's a reason all these guys are doing this. It is extremely difficult with NIL and portal at these lower Division I levels. I think that's a bit, unless a guy just said, I just want to be a head coach now, and you know what? I'm betting on myself, right? Man, those are tough jobs right now, Bobby. When head coaches are leaving to be assistant and position coaches, give me a break.
Yeah. And thank you, Juan, by the way, for the super chat. And we have another super chat from Michael Schuler. And he's giving you your recommendation. He says, Angelo's in South Philly, the best pizza I've ever had. And then he said, also the best cheesesteak. It's a win-win. So there you go, Bobby. You got to go check it out.
Somebody's asking, would Jeff Traylor do the same? Nah, he makes $3 million a year, and he'll be a Big 12 coach in a year or two. Or Arkansas's coach.
All right.
He's on the path you want to be on.
And then I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but the Michigan starting safety, I believe, has entered the transfer portal. I didn't bring this up this morning, and then Ty Abram just reminded me.
When did that happen?
I believe this morning. It was either this morning or late last night, but I'm pretty sure it came out very early this morning.
Wow. Look, if that's starting to trickle, let that dam open. that's if you're a Texas fan. And by the way, obviously Texas will be interested in the defensive tackles. Will Johnson, the corner, is a tremendous player. The safeties at Michigan, very good. Their defense was loaded. Let's just talk about that. Gerry, I do have to go back and talk to you about Dorian Brew. His mom at Ohio State in the Track Hall of Fame, his dad in the Track Hall of Fame at LSU. Sounds like he needs to cut out and make his own way to Texas. I'm just being.
And add more to that. They both ran professionally. The dad has bronze and silver medals from the Olympics, right? The dad's the track coach at Conroe. He was there yesterday. He still looks like he could run a quarter at about 46, honestly, even at 50 years old or whatever he is, 46 maybe. But yeah, it'll be interesting. What's interesting about the build of Dorian Brew physically is he's thicker than his dad. When you see his dad and you see that professional track athlete, Dorian's 6'2", 6'1.5", 6'2", 197, 200 pounds right now. Now he'll drop some of that in track because he's not a basketball guy, so he goes to football off season then track. But he's a guy who, with the long arms he has and that frame, I think he's going to be 6'2", around 210 one day.
Hey, I got to pull this up, guys, real quick. Jay Dobbs, I was a freshman at UT when David Clyde was drafted by the Rangers. That's the picture that we were talking about from Tomball. At UT, it was the final year for Clark Field, and Paul Molitor and Dave Winfield played for Minnesota.
That's amazing.
That's got to be I mean, look, those are two. Are both of those guys in the Hall of Fame?
Hall of Fame. Well, in Dave Winfield, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Dave Winfield, are those the three guys like the best all-around athletes? I mean, Dave Winfield was drafted in 3 professional sports, if not 4. I'm not sure. I mean, hockey, right? Baseball, football, basketball. They weren't all the highest pro levels he was drafted at, but I mean, that's a record that will never be tied or broken.
It's very interesting. So my great uncle, this is crazy. My great uncle was the pitching coach for the Milwaukee Brewers back in the 70s and early 80s. And so I got to know some of those guys, like not only Paul Molitor, but Robin Yount, Cecil Cooper, guys like that. You get a real appreciation hanging out, how good of athletes those guys are when you hang out and just watch them doing normal, silly, stupid stuff, not necessarily on the baseball field of play where they're these hyped up athletes that you get a sense of just how the hand-eye coordination of them. It's like, when Shane Buechele used to play ping pong against other players, you'd get these guys out there and they could go play ping pong right now and beat everybody. I mean, it's kind of, you get appreciation of just how good of an athlete's pro baseball players and pro players in general are, right? Not just baseball.
We talked about this guy. We won't bring up the video, but I mentioned Jet Surratt, the 2026 quarterback at Carthage, Scott Surratt's son. I was up with Coach Surratt and Jet last week, actually watched Jet play 9 holes of golf. When I say, to Bobby's point, there's a video his mom posted. He went out to the David Toms facility in Shreveport, where Toms is from. For the golf guys, golf nuts out there, his ball speed at 16 years old was 198.7 Wednesday. His club head speed, 133. That equals 365 off the tee. So, like, right at 16 years old, and he shot a couple of 65s this year on 7,100-yard courses. So, to Bobby's point, man, these guys, like, this guy's got a real future in golf. For the golf nuts out there, those numbers will mean something. That is more juice than Rory has off the tee and club head speed.
That's insane. Hey, I want to go back to Dorian Brew real quick because we had a question on that from Ray Potter. Thank you, Ray. He says, do you see Brew converting to safety down the road?
I think that's what colleges like so much, is he has that versatility. He can be that boundary corner in the right scheme. He could also be a physical, long-arm safety with cornerback feet, similar to Derek Williams like that. I mean, he's a thicker kid than Derek coming out of high school. But when I watched Derek in high school at Westgate and then at the Under Armour practices, he had the feet of a corner, even though he was going to play safety. I see Dorian Brew that way as well, but Dorian Brew has actually spent a lot more time as a corner and could stay at corner in the right scheme.
Okay, guys. Well, let's get to some more questions here. And I got to find it now because I just lost it.
Hey, by the way, while you're bringing that up, the most impressive thing Dave Winfield ever did, though, on a field, or he hit the pigeon from right field throwing the home plate. Him and Randy Johnson did the 2 craziest things you will ever see on a baseball field. Dave Winfield was in right field in Yankee Stadium. I guess I think it might have been a single to right, and he was throwing home, and he hit the pigeon midair. Of course, I don't think the pigeon is here to talk about it either.
Yeah, and you go find video. It's like on YouTube or.
Well, the Randy Johnson pigeon literally exploded. If you haven't seen that video, that's the craziest thing you've ever seen in sports.
Yes.
The odds of that happening, everybody's going to go out and buy Powerball. Oh, I've actually got a chance.
All right, before we get into some Texas-specific questions, Tom Bregman, I'm mad at the fact Texas won't be playing TCU, Baylor, Houston, Oklahoma State, Tech. Why did the schedule have to change drastically? And then he adds on, I'm just confused on why we aren't playing teams in Texas. Like, why are we playing Louisiana Monroe and Colorado State? Bobby, I'm going to let you take this.
Money. I wrote an article before Chris Del Conte came out in the town hall on Tuesday and said, what he did. The reality of it is Texas is not going to play Texas Tech home and home. And Texas Tech wants a home and home. Well, Texas is not going to do that because that means that one of their 4 or possibly 3 out of conference games are going to be away from home. They're not going to do that. And so you look at it that way, they're not going to go play Baylor home and home. They're not going to do an SMU home and home. They just won't do it. Otherwise, they'll get UTSA coming in. And so financially, it's a non-starter for them. And that's why I wrote what I wrote, because I was told that Texas is not going to schedule a Big 12 team for the foreseeable future. And I wrote that. And then a day later, somebody went and asked Chris, well, is this true? And Chris basically said, he didn't want to say no, it's not because they're a Big 12 school, but he said no, because we're not doing home and homes anymore. That's why that's over, Tom. And so it is about financial security. They want to use a stadium 75 or 7 games a year at least, so they can sell more tickets, get more people to Austin, etc. And you can't do that if you're already giving a neutral site game away every other year in the Cotton Bowl. That's one thing Texas has that nobody else has. They have that neutral site. I shouldn't say nobody, but very few other teams have that neutral site game every year. They're giving that away every other year. And so they can't manage it that way.
By the way, Lewis Gaines had a something I just want to say this, not about the Jet Surat, which we covered. Could you imagine being a fan of Carthage and watching 9 state championships in high school football in 16 years? And if they had stayed healthy this year, they would have won it. And if they stay healthy in the next 2 years, they're going to win at least one. I mean, could you imagine being there right now and watching 10 or 11 state championships in a 19-year period? Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane. All right, well, it's time for me to tell everybody about one of our new sponsors, Chinook Seedery. And baseball season is around the corner, which means you have to have the essentials ready for those 9 innings of fun. And by that, I mean sunflower seeds. They're a must when it comes to baseball, and Chinook Seedery has you covered. With 8 unique flavors to choose from, you'll definitely find a flavor you love, whether you're taking them on a camping trip, to the ball game, or on the wide open road. Chinook has crafted the best tasting sunflower seeds on the planet, and their unique flavors are made from real foods and spices. That means real Parmesan cheese, authentic hatch chilies, freshly harvested dill, and a whole lot of, whoa, those just might be the best seeds ever. Whether you're actually in the game or just watching it, grab a bag of Chinook. Find them in your favorite store or go online to ChinookSeedery.com and seeds the day with Chinook.
Hey, they're the baseball sponsor. Blake, give us a little breakdown. Longhorns start the baseball season later today.
That's correct. 7 o'clock tonight. And they got a 3-game series with San Diego. And, man, right off the bat, going to be facing some tough competition. San Diego, pretty good team. A team that will most likely make a regional, that West Coast style team that they got a pitcher that they're going to start tonight that throws about 101 mile an hour fastball. So it's not going to be just, a cakewalk going into tonight. But yeah, I mean, just very excited about this season in general. Obviously losing Luke Storm at first base has kind of shake some things up, but I think a guy like Tommy Farmer that you'll probably see now in the outfield is a guy that you were going to see at some point anyway. So I'm excited to see him, Gasparino, some of these young guys. But man, I mean, just really excited. The sky's the limit for this team tonight. For this team this season, I guess I should say. A lot of potential there. It's just a matter of putting it all together and seeing what pitching, I think, more than anything, that's going to be the biggest question mark. And we reported on Texas football that they had I think about 10 to 12 guys they feel great about offensively. So that's good news for the Longhorns. It's just, what can they do when it comes to pitching? So
Blake, set this aside. A lot of people don't follow baseball as closely as they follow football. Some follow it as much or more. I know that. But my question to you is, what are the expectations heading into the season for Texas in baseball? Are they a top 5 team? Are they a top 25 team? Are they going to be struggling to make the regionals? Give people a more macro perspective of baseball?
Yeah. So right now in a lot of the preseason polls, I mean, I've seen them ranked anywhere from 10 to 16, 17-ish. I would say top 15 right now, just because of the question marks at pitching, and I just touched on that, but that's really the biggest question mark. If they can get that all together, Bobby, I really do think a trip to Omaha is easily attainable. It would be a disappointment if not, once again, if that pitching comes together. And they bring back LBJ. That's huge. The Texas staff feels like he's one of the best pitchers in the country, if not the best, already on the Golden Spikes, watch list. So there's a lot of talent there, a lot of pieces that they have brought back. But as with anything, it's just a matter of getting it all to work. But yeah, I mean, a trip to Omaha should not be out of the question. And like I said, if the pitching's there, I think it would be a disappointment for them not to get there.
By the way, this is the one time a year that Randy McIlvoy may have the best job. He's in West Palm Beach for a month every day with the sunset and the backdrop covering the Astros on KPRC2. He's got a great gig for the next month. I'll tell you that. He's got a great gig, Gerry, but for the next month is really cool. By the way, they interviewed Ryan, for the Astros fans. They interviewed Ryan Presley on not being the closer anymore since Hader was signed for those Astros fans out there, which doesn't mean anything to the Rangers fans because they're still celebrating.
Hey, we're going to repeat, baby. We got a lot of questions about baseball being televised. Yes, Longhorn Network, 7:00 tonight. I think 2:30 tomorrow and 1 on Sunday. But pretty much every home game is going to be televised on Longhorn Network. I think with the exception of TCU, which will be on ESPN. But Texas actually has more baseball games televised than any other program in the nation this season.
And by the way, then we'll mention basketball before we get back to football. Huge game Saturday at the University of Houston, Texas at U of H. Look, Texas is in hoops. They got to finish 8-10 in conference. I'm actually going to write something on OTF a little bit later about this today. That they got to get 8-10 in conference play, and I think if they do that with the schedule, I'll break that down why they'll still be in the NCAA tournament.
And before we move on, Texas softball. I think they faced 4 top 25 teams this weekend. Yep. So we got to learn a lot about them after they dominated last weekend against number 8 UCLA. All right, guys. Well, let's get back to football because we have a ton of questions here. And we'll just start at the top. This question from Antoine. He says, will the spring roster be released in the next few weeks?
Did y'all notice?
I think it will go. Bobby, go ahead. But I'll say,
did y'all notice they started putting out some new pictures on on Twitter yesterday with different players and their jersey numbers, etc. Aaron Butler and Isaiah Bond were 2 that I noticed. Some good stuff. So I think that it'll be usually when we get it, when we actually get it, is the first day of spring ball. They'll allow the media members 15 minutes to go out and watch practice, and they'll give us the roster.
Yeah.
Now, it may come out a day or 2 earlier than that, but that's the first day when they put it in your hands and say, okay, here are the new numbers, here are the new everything. And that's when we'll be able to have everything for you in one single place. They may do it a little earlier this year. I don't know what Thomas Stepp and John Bianco, the sports information folks, are deciding to do at this point.
Yeah, I'll echo what Bobby said. When these kids start posting those photos, Isaiah Bond, Aaron Butler, Christian Clark, we saw Parker Livingston. When those guys start posting the photos of them in their TUT polo, the updated roster is not far behind.
Right.
All right, so this next question here is going to be from Forrest Elridge, and he says, do y'all think we'll see an improvement from Quinn's fastball and fitting throws into tighter windows this year?
If he wants to make money, he better. I mean, I think that there are 2 things left, or 2 or 3 things left that Quinn needs to improve on. Throwing the fastball and fitting into tighter windows is one of them. Maneuverability in the pocket is another. Quicker progressions is a third. Gerry, those 3 things: tighter windows, quicker progressions, maneuverability in the pocket. All of those things, along with just getting better physically, are going to be things that Quinn has to work on this year.
Yeah, for me, it'll be discussed plenty. I'm getting stronger physically to fit the NFL profile. Last year was kind of losing the weight that he needed to. This year's about getting stronger, getting that body stronger. And then two, I think just red zone. I think if he progresses from year 2 to year 3 like he did year 1 to year 2, we won't even be having these conversations.
That's true.
Jason Washington with the question. He says, if you guys had to guess, how quickly will the incoming freshmen and portal guys be able to pick up on the playbook? I'm sure the offensive guys really have quite a bit to process.
He's right, Bobby. I think the offense, the scheme, at wide receiver, at tight end, offensive line, DJ Campbell had a big learning curve in front of him. That's a complex offensive scheme with a ton of pre-snap movement. So that I think that offensive scheme is tougher to pick up than the defensive scheme, especially at the wide receiver position. That's why I think year 2 you see a different Johntay Cook than year 1, because you're comfortable and that allows you to play with freedom. And that's what we've said about how good Ryan Wingo looks in workouts and things such as that headed in the spring practice. If he picks up the system fast, then watch out, right? But it does take guys a little longer to pick up this offensive system with all the pre-snap movement, all the reads, everything at the wide receiver and tight end position. I'll
say this: running back.
Yeah,
the running backs got a ton of pre-snap movement in Sark's offense. I would say this: portal guys will definitely be ahead. Even if they played in a very rudimentary style offense, they'll still be ahead because they've been there, right? I mean, they've had a year or two in a college system. They know how much more exacting it might be than a high school level offense. I mean, you're going up from high school to college. You're going to have that, and they've already been through it. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be better at it, right? Jai Hall was not very good at it, and he was coming over from a college program. But I think that Sark recruited guys that had that kind of mentality, so they're going to be okay with it. So I think portal versus that. The other position that I actually think has issues in the portal are linebacker, or not just linebacker, not just the offensive side of the ball. I mean, but learning the system, linebacker and safety in college, very difficult compared to pro or compared to high school. If you think about it. Look, in high school, you could be Anthony Hill and just overwhelm people, right? No doubt. You got to worry about the pass as much as you got to worry about the run. You got to worry about tight ends that can run by you, not just guys that you can dominate. You got to worry about taking on a guard. I think linebackers are really difficult, 1 year exchange from high school to college. And then safety. I mean, I don't care what you do. There's no high school offense that stresses a safety like a college offense will. And so you have to, your brain almost has to refigure what's possible and where you need to be. You can take corners, cut corners in high school. You can't cut corners in college at safety.
To that point, that's why I think it's so important that Xavier Filsaime and Jordan Johnson-Rebel are in it spring. See, Derek Williams, think how good he was as a freshman. Think about what he'd have been if he'd had spring practice. I mean, that's a big difference for these guys at the safety position, all positions, but to Bobby's point at the safety position, I mean, I think that's going to be so helpful for Filsaime and Jordan Johnson-Rebel and getting on the field quicker and getting up to speed quicker.
While we're on the note of the offense, Football Texas says, guys, which SEC team has the closest offensive scheme to Texas? And does that learning curve hurt us some this year, but help us the following year?
It's Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they're cut from the same cloth. Lane may be a little bit more of the wild card with his offense. Like he likes to, you think Steve Sarkisian likes to throw the deep ball. Lane Kiffin has never seen a deep ball he didn't like. 3rd and 1, let's go deep, but they are so similar. I mean, the power run up the middle, That's my wife. Great.
If she just broke a commitment, we're in trouble.
Yes. Hi, there you go, Jerry. But I think Lane Kiffin by far, guys, is the one that I would be talking about here. The others that I could say that are of interest or reasonably approximations. Go ahead, Jerry. I was going to say
somebody on the chat brought up Josh Heupel a little bit as well.
Yeah, he's more of that. He's more of the Jeff Levy style.
Yeah,
it's that. I think he does a lot of that. RPO game is so heavy with him. So those are my thoughts.
Well, you know what was interesting is I talked with a SEC defensive coordinator when Sark was hired, and I just asked him a question. I was like, "Look, is Sark the best play caller you've gone against in the SEC?" And his answer was interesting. He said, Sark is the best script guy you go against. He said, Lane Kiffin's the best play caller. He said, both great in what they do very well. He said, Sark script over Kiffin, Kiffin play call over script. That's one SEC D coordinator, but very similar offenses. All guys have different strengths, right? He said Sark's script he said beginning a game, you know what Sark does is going to stress you more than anybody. He said late in the game, he said, boy, Lane Kiffin's tough.
And on that move to the SEC, Steve Booth asked, do you guys feel that Texas making the playoffs and going to the SEC, that we have gotten the recruiting bump that we thought we would?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I'll put it this way. This is why this is an easy yes. Cedric Baxter, Jerrick Gibson, DeAndre Robinson for a little while. State of Florida. It was no man's land for Texas in the Big 12. I mean, it just wasn't an area you recruited very hard. You weren't going to win a lot of those battles at all. But, to get running backs back-to-back years that were once committed to Florida State and once committed to Florida, that had SEC offers from about everybody out of the state of Florida, the Orlando area, IMG Academy. Jerrick Gibson's originally from Gainesville, Florida. That says a lot. Then Derek Williams. Would he have come to Texas? And academics did matter. But with all these moves to SEC, Arch Manning's a little different, even though nobody in that family had ever played outside the SEC, by the way. He's a little different. But, you just look at the recruiting classes the last 3 years and you see where guys are from. And part of that sell is coming to the SEC. And part of that sell is these kids and these families know that Texas is headed to the SEC. I think it helps more than you can even imagine. And I'll say this on a Brandon Baker out of Mater Dei. I mean, look, he visited Georgia officially, visited Texas, he visited Ohio State. He visited more SEC schools than he did Big Ten schools. He liked the idea of being in the SEC once Oregon had slipped and they weren't going to be where he was going to go. So even those kids out in California, Silas Bolden said it. He wanted to challenge himself against the best. Bobby, remember when he said it? I wanted to go to the SEC. I followed the SEC when I was in high school at Rancho Cucamonga because the SEC was dominating everything. Texas got a big boost from it, and I think it's going to continue.
David Williams says, excuse me, I think Texas is a run-first team that has 2 running backs that could be the best in the SEC and at least 3 good running backs behind them. The offensive line is very good run blocking. They just need to block better on the goal line. So my question to y'all is, do you agree with that part about the 2 running backs that could possibly be the best in the SEC?
Well, it's interesting because obviously Judkins left Ole Miss, went to Ohio State. Georgia has 2 guys in the combine, but they got the kid from Florida who transferred to Etienne's brother from Florida. There were a lot of running back losses. Well, LSU just had their guy arrested, but there's been a lot of running back losses in the SEC off last year's team. So Texas is going in a pretty good spot at the running back position. Bobby, I haven't broken down every team in the SEC. That's actually a really good idea, though, David Williams, just to look at running back in the SEC on a whole.
Here is my take on that. The SEC typically has the best running backs in the country. Yes. Not necessarily the A1s. Like they don't necessarily have a Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson was A1, right? He's the best you're going to get. Okay. And I want to say this the right way. they have a litany of Roshan Johnsons, Jaden Blues, and probably Cedric Baxter's. Okay. So I don't think that Texas has, they may have the best tandem of running backs, but I don't think they have the best 2 running backs in the SEC. I'd highly doubt that. The SEC is a very, very good conference at running back in particular.
By the way, Patrick Page, 100% correct. Colin Simmons would not be at Texas if Texas hadn't moved to the SEC. I'll never forget, first time I talked to him at Duncanville, he said, I'm going to play in the SEC. Period. And he said it every single time you ever talked to him.
All right, Jerry, it's time for you to tell folks out there about one of our other sponsors today, Manscaped.
Yes, it is very much that time, guys. And I'm pulling that up right now. 2024 is here in full swing. And that means it's time for a New Year's resolution check-in with our friends at Manscaped. Newsflash, it's never too late to level up your grooming game and keep your bush tame. Manscaped's new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Whether you're going for that trim or that clean-shaven look, this trimmer has you covered. It's trusted by over 10 million men worldwide, and now is your time to get a grip on your grooming with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off plus free shipping. The ball is dropped, guys, but don't drop the ball on your balls. Manscaped.com on Texas for 20% off.
Always a pro, Jerry. Always a pro.
Was the lawnmower coming burn orange? No, but it should.
Maybe we can get a special edition one made.
SEC with an SEC logo, too. Break it out after every SEC win.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. Jeremiah Nisbet says, with all the new portal additions at wide receiver, how many receptions will Johntay have in 2024? And this is something I was actually thinking about earlier today, so I'm glad he asked it.
Boy, let's see what go. Look, Johntay's got competition. I mean, we can sit here and say, oh, well, he's the best of the best. You know, he's highly rated. He's got competition. Silas Bolden has competition in Johntay Cook, in my opinion. Matthew Golden has competition. I mean, all of these guys, they've got competition. And I think it's good. I don't know. I mean, I think 30 catches and up for Johntay. Some people are going to want to say 50 and up. He's going to be the replacement for Xavier Worthy. Is he? That's one. Look, let's talk about spring ball for a second. What are the positions you want to see that, figure out? Wide receiver, we know we need to figure that out, right? How is Sark going to actually use some of these guys? Where is Johntay? Where's DeAndre Moore? Where's Ryan Wingo vis-a-vis everybody else, given he's so young, right? That's one of them. I want to see what happens in the secondary, too. I mean, how are they going to play Makuba and Barron? Who's going to play safety? Who's going to play corner after the top 3 guys? So wide receiver and DB right now, to me, are the biggest question marks. And I think they have the tools and the pieces to create this puzzle or whatever, or make the puzzle work. But who are those pieces going to be, and how frequent, to the question of how many receptions? I don't know. I don't know that Sark knows yet, by the way. He's got to say, he's got to roll the ball out there, and they got to go compete.
Hey, Jason Washington has another really good question on here.
Yes, he's always bringing the goods. I was actually going to get to it next. He says,
I like
which
this
offensive
question.
line on the schedule poses the biggest challenge for the Texas D-line?
Even though they lost some guys, somebody already said Georgia's response in the comments, and Georgia has the most talented large humans right now in the SEC on the offensive line. They will for sure. I don't know what Florida's going to look like. I think A&M's, that's the biggest question mark for their season, is the offensive line. So that's a really good question. I think Georgia by far is going to have the biggest, most athletic guys on the offensive line Texas sees next year.
LSU should be good with Will Campbell in that group.
Jerry, this question for you from Zachary Delgado. Any news on the punter position?
No. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see. And Bobby's touched on this, and I know I've touched on this. I'm sure CJ has as well. But if Texas doesn't go portal in the spring, that tells you how much Jeff Banks, how high he is on Michael Kern out of STA. I think since Kern is not here for spring, since he's a May graduate at STA, that makes Texas' decision a little tougher there. But there's also a kid named Ian Ratliff. I believe Ian's his first name. I watched him at Atascocita when I went to watch Cam Dewberry and those guys in high school. Obviously, Nate Kibble, and they played Kelvin Banks at Summer Creek. Yeah, Ratliff was an impressive punter at Atascocita, and he was a walk
on at Texas.
He walked on at Texas, but I'm telling you, he's not void of talent now. That guy is a Power 5 level punter. So it'll be interesting to see. Ryan Nelson, I said A&M's offensive line's overrated. I think that's the biggest question mark with their team next year with A&M is offensive line. I mean, they were too much of a sieve. They got multiple quarterbacks hurt last year. Their offensive line, I'm not going to say they're as bad as Texas was when Sark got here, but Bobby, I'm not sure how far off it was last year based on their play.
Yeah. You know, they've had injury issues too that they've kind of tried to get through. And you know, did you see the footage of, I think it was either Sweat or Murphy taking the A&M offensive guard Layden Robinson to absolute town.
Yeah.
They had guard issues last year as much as they had tackle issues. They were starting a true freshman at tackle late last year, Chase Basantis. And every game I tuned in on, he was getting pushed into the feet of the quarterback like within half a second.
He's a guard playing, having to play tackle.
Yeah, no. And so I don't know the answer about whether they're overrated because I don't rate them very highly. Yeah. Would be my initial thought. The second piece of that, guys, is, you know, I'm looking at A&M, and I think you know what you get with their offensive line is a patchwork right now. They have some talent, but it's patchwork. I think their biggest question is quarterback. Their defense will probably be really good with Mike Elko being the guy, but their quarterback, you know, Connor Wegman is a talented dude, like NFL first round talent. He can't stay healthy.
No.
Okay. That's an issue. And so beyond that, I worry about them scoring 25 points a game and being competitive. If I were an A&M fan, I was like, who is going to be our quarterback? Like 2 games in, you can't be getting injured. And if your offensive line is a sieve, to Jerry's point, how does that impact it?
We're going to stay on these same type of questions that we've been answering these last few ones. I'm going to group these two together, guys. Isaiah Stewart says, which offense in the SEC will give us the most problems? And then Ray Potter wants to know what wide receiver group will pose the biggest challenge. So we'll start with Isaiah.
I think you got to look at the team on the schedule, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you got to look at, not the possibility of who you could play. Bobby may have a different answer, but I'm actually going to go with Georgia next year because returning quarterback, big, large humans on the offensive line, the talent they've recruited in that program. And while they may not have Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian there, I think the talent, the abundance of talent with a future NFL draft pick returning at quarterback is a big one. Because that's the one thing when you look at Texas' schedule right now is – one, how many first-year starting quarterbacks or changes at quarterback are there in these programs? Texas does not face, one thing about their schedule, they don't face the best offenses in the SEC. They just don't. If you look at this schedule, your Ole Miss is not on your schedule. And even though LSU lost a lot, they have a lot of talent over there. on offense. You don't play the most talented offenses or the best offenses in the SEC. If you look at this schedule, Graham Mertz is back at Florida, but who knows what they're going to look like at that point. KJ Jefferson's at UCF. He's going to be looking to beat Florida, Arkansas, and UCF in the swamp, by the way. But, Bobby, that it's not great offenses in the SEC on this schedule. There's better offenses not on the schedule.
Well, I think Georgia with Harrison Beck's going to be the best offense.
They're the one.
Yeah, they're the one. The question is, who's the best receiver group? I don't know. The one I will say this: the best receiver Texas will face, or at least the one that will be drafted the highest, is Dorian Brown from Kentucky.
Oh yeah, he's a freak and kickoff return.
Yeah, exactly. So he'll likely be a top 10, top 15 NFL pick. But does Kentucky have a second guy or a third guy to be the toughest receiver group? And I don't know that. I will say that the best tight end Texas will face will be most likely the guy at Michigan, not in the SEC. But Colston Loveland, I believe is his name. He's expected to be tight end one off the board in
no doubt. And by the way, Champ Bailey, OU may have the best group of receivers. I could actually see that Texas faces in a game this year. I mean, in SEC play, it's possible. Nick Anderson.
Who's great for OU?
Nick Anderson's going to play 10 years in the NFL.
Okay, well, he's good. Andrew Anthony's good. He's
coming off ACL.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deion Burks from Purdue, good pickup in the portal for them. Good slot player. So I think that's not a bad pick for the best overall group of receivers. Now they have a first-year starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this next question here comes from Kelly Hyden. And Kelly asks, which game, Florida, Arkansas, or Kentucky, is the game that Texas should be most concerned with out of those three?
Wow.
I mean,
who's going to be Arkansas's quarterback, Jerry?
It's a good question.
Do we know? I think that Arkansas in Fayetteville is, it has been a difficult place for Texas for ages.
That's the answer.
You think so?
Just because of where you're playing. But, Kentucky's interesting, but Kentucky lost. Well, they got another transfer quarterback in, right? They're almost like Notre Dame right now, portal quarterback. The running back from Ohio State, the Tranium kid who started out, a good player, started at Arizona State, then went to Ohio State. He transferred in, but they lost quarterback, running back. They lost two tremendous players on defense. All these guys will be at the combine. So I'm interested to see Kentucky on defense next year a little bit. I think Arkansas, just because of it's the Super Bowl for Arkansas, they're probably not going to be a very good team necessarily, but
Pittman's coaching for his job.
Yes.
Just like Billy Napier's coaching for his job. Of all of those, though, I will say this. I think that Florida will be the most talented team Texas sees. They may be decimated by that time.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
The Florida will be the most talented team, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, they've got defensive line now. So get ready because you're not going to be able to run the ball real well against Florida. You're going to have to complete it again, complete some passes.
Hey, Bobby, before we move on, I'm going to let you tell folks out there about BKCW and escaping the insurance trap.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Blake. Each and every Friday live stream brought to you guys by the folks at BKCW. They're kind enough to sponsor Coffee and Football and help make this all possible. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. Don't get caught in the insurance trap when the agent just tells you at the very last minute, we're going to have to raise your rates. Instead, reach out to BKCW. Go to bkcw.com, send an email, info@bkcw.com to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap.
I'll make a prediction on the second best receiver to Dorian Brown Texas sees next year, Eugene Wilson at Florida. Phenomenal freshman. I saw him at Under Armour camp in Miami. for his senior year. And I'm here to tell you, man, that guy was like poor man's Jalen Waddle. He might not have been that explosive fast. His dad played in the NFL. And when I say poor man's, that's a compliment now. Eugene Wilson has high NFL draft pick ability as a slot receiver. He's very good.
Maybe he'll be with the quarterback at Willis playing for Florida next year. Seriously.
Yeah. Graham Mertz they're going to have to keep Graham Mertz healthy next year in that schedule.
All right, Horn 7 wants to know, are you hearing anything yet about the fastest 3 to 4 players in the winter workouts? And then Kyle also adds, have you heard from winter workouts who are the fastest receivers?
Wingo and my understanding is Wingo and Isaiah Bond right now. That's what I've been told. So beyond 3 or 4, I don't know that number.
And then this next question here from
Wingo, by the way, may be the fastest receiver.
Wow.
Everybody thinks it's Bond. Okay. And Bond is more physically ready, but just be aware of that.
Jerry, this next question is from Ryan. And he says, who in the upcoming class is your near absolute lock to make it to the NFL? Not just talent, but everything talent, physical attributes, mental makeup, etc.
So 2025 class. Look, I think I'll be shocked. And Texas has to hold on to him. I'll be shocked if Brandon Brown is not an NFL player at defensive line. Just doing this as long as I have maybe injuries. Sidetrack him a little bit, but if that happens, but he is so explosive and strong, naturally strong at the same time with long arms for his height. He would test off the charts right now. Brandon Brown to me is kind of freaky. Dorian Moore in that class. If you're talking about somebody, if that guy's not a high NFL draft pick, I'll be very surprised.
And then King Meat wants to know, Jerry, are there any 2026 quarterbacks we should know about?
Yeah, Troy Hunn, absolutely. Outside of Texas, Texas offered their first 2 in the whole cycle on, I believe that was Wednesday. It's a couple of Valentine's Day offers, love me offers out there. Troy Hunn out of Mission Hills and San Marcos has my full attention. Jerrick Curtis is good out of Nashville. I think that's going to go to Georgia, maybe Tennessee. Oregon's in there. His sister goes to Tennessee, but I think Georgia maybe have a beat on that, especially since Raiola flipped. But now Juju Lewis can affect that greatly in 2025 if Georgia can flip him. So Jerrick Curtis was an offer. Troy Hunn out of Mission Hills has my full attention, guys. Look, I got to go see him in person, but just based on what I've seen and some questions I've asked people, I think he's got a real chance to go from unranked to that 5-star level guy. Bobby, I know you watched him as well. His mom's a basketball coach at Carlsbad High in AAU down there. He has an older sister that plays at Miami of Ohio. Athletic family. Kid's got really good feet for a young quarterback. He's a first-year starter last year, but he can make all the throws. It's compact. You don't really have to break this guy down and build him back up. He is starting from such a good place. But hit the opposite field hash deep intermediate throws are extremely impressive for a 16-year-old quarterback.
Well, look, Sarkis has offered 2 quarterbacks in the 2026 class at this point. Jerrick Curtis out of Nashville that you just mentioned, and Troy Hunn. We need to figure out if it's Hunn or Hune, by the way. But long story short is he's offered those 2 guys. The one you're talking about is out of Mission Hills, Southern California, Orange County area. And I did watch him, and he's tall, lanky. He gives off very big Trey Owens vibes to me a little bit, but he's a little bit more athletic than Trey. And so that would be something that's interesting. What you have to process and put into context there, those guys aren't necessarily going to make decisions next week. Okay. There's also this glut of quarterbacks inside the state.
Yes.
So one of the guys just mentioned from Nashville and Southern California. There's 5 or 6 quarterbacks in state in that 26 class that AJ Milwee is already saying, I'm going to go out there and see you and kind of try to figure out what they want to do in the spring.
Yep.
And so while they've made decisions on some out-of-state guys, because I think they have to at some level, The in-state guys, they're going to go out and evaluate.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and those names are AJ Mill will be by Carthage to watch Jet Surratt, Grand Oaks to watch Grant Smith. All these guys have Power 5 offers already. So quarterback Jake Fett out at El Paso, who's picking up offers, TCU, Baylor, people like that. So he's a guy that's not even really on the radar for most recruiting fans right now, but he will be. It's a pretty good quarterback year in 2026 in Texas. So, and the quarterback Wise that CJ went and saw at Austin Westlake also has offers. So Texas will do their homework on those guys. And to further Bobby's point, you know, KJ Lacey was a name this time last year. He committed June 3rd at Elite Camp. So I think you'll see that 2026 class probably get started in a similar fashion with a quarterback commitment in June, possibly.
Yeah, the quarterback out of Tampa is Will Griffin.
He's a rare guy that started in 8th grade on varsity football, which you can do if your middle school and high school campuses are literally on the same campus. So Will Griffin's been a starter at Tampa Jesuit over there since 8th grade.
Crazy.
Does not have a Texas offer yet, though.
No.
All right, last question for today. And Bobby, I think this one is intended for you. Your wife, Jenny, says, what's your prediction on Penn versus Yale basketball game today? Go Quakers.
I literally don't know the record.
Yale's a 6.5 point.
What's the prize picks for that, Blake?
What's the prize picks on that?
So they don't have one. I did look, but I can tell you the odds makers have made Yale a 6.5 point favorite.
That's pretty big. That's pretty big.
138.5.
That's pretty big. For
all I know is my daughter and her friends. I hope they have fun. I hope we're going to try Angelo's Pizza. It sounds like afterwards, so that should be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Yale's a good team. They're 16-6, and for people that don't remember, they actually beat Texas on a basketball recruit 2 years ago. There's a freshman center over there, Samson Allerton, who was at Lake Highlands. Bobby, you'll get to see him tonight. He plays a reserve role. I think he physically needed some time, but that was a guy that Chris Beard, sorry to bring that up, and Rodney Terry and that staff really liked at Lake Highlands. He played with Trey Johnson. Texas offered him, but he actually chose Ivy League over all those Power 5 schools.
Good stuff.
Before we get out of here, Bobby, let folks know what they can expect not only later today, but this weekend on Texas football.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, CJ, I think, is out and about this morning at his school. We'll have stuff on ontexasfootball.com. We're back at 1 o'clock for a weekend ender. Or a weekender for the 1 o'clock live stream each and every Friday. Rod Babers will join us, as well as CJ Vogel. And then on the weekend, CJ is going to reach out. He's done some research on the new NCAA college football game that EA Sports is putting out. He's going back and comparing where the best players were in Texas were ranked, and then comparing where he thinks the new players like Quinn Ewers and those guys will be as well. So it's going to be interesting. He also has a special guest, a guy named Bing that goes by the name Bingle that knows this stuff inside and out. Should be an interesting conversation there. I'm talking with Brian Irwin, the former two-time state championship coach. We're going to talk a little bit about what Texas is doing, the coaching staff right now behind the scenes to get ready for spring ball.
That's all. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We need to thank BKCW, Chinook Seedery, and, of course, Manscaped for sponsoring today's show. Thank you for all the super chats. As Bobby said, head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Join in the community, all the good discussion that's going on over there. And then if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We would definitely appreciate that. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I
got one thing to say.
Oh, go ahead.
32 days away from spring practice.
That's right.
32 days away. We're a month away, guys, from the 17 members of that top 6-5 recruiting class. All the portal guys that are here, minus Silas Bolden. More Arch Manning in spring practice versus last year when Malik Murphy was number 2. I'm going to keep banging the drum until my drumsticks break. Most anticipated spring practice for Texas since 2004.
Wow.
All right. So we'll be back on Monday morning. So we will see you then.
Hook up.